Before we get started, I wanted to show you this book real quick. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to show you some of the pictures from it because I think it's very important to know the artist who drew these originally. So the artist who drew The Nightmare Before Christmas, his name is Tim Burton. And I wanted to show you his art because his art isn't perfectly polished. It's kind of messy, it's kind of wobbly, and I wanted to show you that that's okay. So if you look at Jack's head right here, there's a little dent in it, but that's fine. His shirt is kind of wobbly, but that adds to the art, right? Makes it kind of fun. So I want you guys to keep that in mind as we go forward. It doesn't need to be perfect to be a good piece of art. Okay, again, there's some wobbly lines right here. That's totally fine. There's Santa. And the door is even wobbly. The kids are really tiny. So it's totally okay to have some boo-boos or some mistake in your artwork. Okay? I'm gonna put that to the side and then we will get started. You should have your paper and your pencil. Here we go. So we're gonna start with Jack because he's in the background here. Okay, and we're gonna start with his head. His head is a circle shape. So I'm gonna start by drawing. I'm gonna draw it kind of high up because Jack is a tall dude. So I'm gonna start with that circle. And again, it's okay to be wobbly and to make mistakes. Once we draw that circle, he needs a neck to hold his head up. And he's got a very tiny neck. So I'm just gonna draw a couple lines coming from his neck, or from his head. Now we're gonna draw, it's a little bat that's part of his tie. So the bat is kind of like two V shapes. So there's a wide V, like the letter V. And then there's a smaller V on the inside, just like this. Then we're going to give him some shoulders. We're actually going to draw this is called a torso, or the top part of your body. And this torso is kind of like an upside down triangle. So I'm going to give him his shoulders, and then I'm going to draw two lines coming down into a triangle, just like this. Okay, now that we have that done, we're going to draw part of his suit. Okie dokie. So let's go ahead and move on. We're going to draw part of his suit. So on the inside of his torso that we just drew, we're going to start by drawing a button or a circle at the bottom of the triangle. So we're going to draw the button. And then we're going to draw two lines right next to the inside of the triangle. So we're going to go from the button and we're going to go all the way up to his shoulder. There's one. And then we're going to do another one from the button all the way up to his shoulder. All right. So now we're going to make part of his suit right here. It's called a lapel. And that's kind of a funky shape. So in between this inside line and outside line of the triangle, we're going to draw a short little stubby line, just like that. And then we're going to draw a sideways V, like this. Once we draw that sideways V, from that V, we're going to draw another line down to the inside line. And we have just made one lapel of Jack's suit. So now that we've done that on one side, we need to do it on the other side. So again, in between these two lines, we're going to do a short line, a sideways V, and then another line, bringing it down to the inside line. And that is the other lapel of Jack's suit. Now that we've got the torso done, we're going to finish his head. And Jack has a very big smile. It goes from one side of his face to the other. So I like to turn my page when I draw smiles because it feels a little more comfortable for my hand. So if you need to turn your page, go ahead and do that. And I'm going to draw a big smile from one side of his head to the other. And once I'm done with that, I'll move my paper back to how I had it. So that's really easy. We're just going to go through and we're going to add some tick marks or short, tiny little lines across his smile. So now Jack is a very friendly skeleton. He has these very big eyes to show us that he's very attentive and very focused on us. And again, like Mr. Tim Burton, it's okay if they don't match. It's okay if they're wobbly. But we need 2 eye sockets or eye holes where the eyeballs would go. So we're going to draw 1 and 2. And if you would like to, you can go ahead and fill those in because they would be holes. They'd be dark, right? And now he also has these 2 holes right here. That's where his nose would be. And those are just tiny little circles in between his eyeballs. So 2 tiny circles in between his eyeballs. Excuse me. If you remember, this is the head of a bat right here. And we never gave him eyes. I'm going to draw 2 little tick marks to give him eyes. So he's looking at us. So this is a head of a bat. And then these crazy things going off to the side are kind of like the wings. So I'm going to do one side and then I'll do the other. So from one side of the bat head, we're going to go up and make this kind of curved line. It's going to curve down. And then I like to draw the bottom line and then connect them. So I'm going to draw the bottom part of the wing, which is another line that's curved down. And then, like I said before, I kind of like to turn my page sometimes just to make it a little more comfortable for my hand to draw. So in between these 2 lines, I'm going to draw like a droopy V. Okay, I'm not going to connect it to anything. It's just going to be a V. And now that I have that V, I'm going to start connecting the V to the outside lines. Just like that. So now that we have one side, I need to do the other side. We're going to do the same thing, but in reverse. So we're going to do the top line just like this. And then the bottom line again. And again, to make it more comfortable for my hand, I'm going to turn it a little bit. And then I'm going to add that V right in between. And then I get to connect the dots. Now, once I'm done, I can put it right back up. He's looking pretty fancy so far. Let's add his arms next. So in this drawing, I have one arm kind of on his chest and the other arm sitting on the back of his hip. You may do this or you may move his arms, but for right now, I'm just going to show you how to draw these arms right now. Okay. So let's start with his left arm here. His arms are really long, thin rectangles. So from where his shoulder is, I'm going to draw one long rectangle. And then I'm going to draw another long rectangle, but this one's going to go up towards his chest like that. Okay. And if we look very closely on his sleeve, his sleeve is kind of like folded over. So for that, we're just going to draw 2 lines, and that's going to make it look like his sleeve is folded over. Now, the hand has a lot of details, but I'm going to break it down so it's easy for you. Okay. On my first drawing, he has 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers. Okay. We have 5, but cartoons usually have 4 or 3 fingers. So Jack's going to have 4. These hands are made up of more rectangles, long, thin rectangles, just like his arm. So I'm going to start by drawing 4 long rectangles coming from his sleeve. And I'm going to spread them out a little bit. I got 1, 2, 3, and 4. The middle part of the finger, that would be kind of like this part right here, we're going to draw more long rectangles. You can draw them straight, you can draw them moving around. We're just going to connect the rectangles together. Just like that. And then the last rectangle, so the fingertips right here, are going to be a little different. They're going to start off as rectangles, but then they're going to point at the very end. So if we look right here, his top finger bone is very thin. So I'm going to draw, they're going to be like kind of tall triangles more than rectangles. Just like that. So now that we have his left arm done, we're going to go to his right arm. And again, we're going to draw rectangles. So from the shoulder, I'm going to draw 2 lines to make a long rectangle. And then we're going to do the forearm. So we're just going to draw another rectangle. And then while we're here, we're going to draw those 2 lines again to show that his sleeve is folded over. We're going to start by drawing the front of his legs. And the front of his legs is just a really long straight line. Sometimes it's a lot easier to make a straight line when you draw it quickly. Because if you try to draw it really, really slow, it might wiggle quite a bit. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to quickly draw a line going down. And we want it kind of long because he's a tall guy. So that's the front of his legs. We're going to leave it like that for right now. And now we're going to give him kind of like a little behind. So I'm going to draw like a backwards C. Really stretched out backwards C. We're going to give him the tail of his suit jacket right here. So from the top, from where that triangle meets, we're going to draw a diagonal line going down, just like that. And it makes it kind of looks like a dumpling almost, or yeah, a dumpling, or maybe like a hot pocket. So from there, we're going to give him these little wispy bits coming down. From the bottom of our hot pocket, we're going to draw a little squiggly line. And we're going to leave it like that for right now. We'll come back and finish those little wispy bits. So from the bottom of the hot pocket, where that little corner is, we're going to go up just a little bit. And we're going to draw another line going straight down. And it's going to get more closer to the other line the further down it goes. But we're not going to let it touch just yet. Okay. Once we have that, now we need to show that he has 2 legs and not just 1. So we're going to go in between these 2 lines, almost to the top. We'll say about right there. So from there, we're going to draw it straight down. So now that he has his legs, we got to give him feet to run around with. So we're going to, we're going to finish the end of his pants. So we're just going to draw the lines across to give him the end of his pant leg. And then we're going to give him shoes. So the shoes are pretty interesting, okay? We're going to start on his right leg. So on the bottom of his pant leg, we're going to draw like a sideways V. From the other side of the bottom of his pant leg, we're just going to draw a line going down. And that's going to make the heel of his shoe. So now we need to do the other one, and we're going to do another piece of pizza. A V, but this time we don't have to do the heel because that heel is behind the first foot. And you have drawn his feet. Okay, so now we have to go back because we still haven't finished drawing this hand or the wispy bits. Let's start by the wispy bits. So from the bottom of our hot pocket, we're going to move our pencil down just a little bit. And starting on that back leg, we're going to draw another wiggly line, just like that. So now we'll have two wiggly lines. And now we're going to fill in the blanks. So you can draw some V's, squiggly V's, just like this. And that'll be the end of his coat. All right. So now we got to finish his hand up here. And now this one's a little different because we're not looking at his hand straight on. We're actually looking at it from the side. So you see how different your hand looks from the side than straight on. Okay. So we're going to draw the side of his hand first. The side of his hand is going to be, again, just a rectangle, a thin, long rectangle. And then we're going to draw the middle part, which may be a little curved. And then the top of his fingers. That one is a long triangle. And now because it's on the side, I'll kind of zoom in a little bit. Because it's on the side, we're not going to see every single finger. We may only see two of his fingers and his thumb. So I'm going to draw one more finger behind or on the left of this main finger. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, another rectangle, and then the triangle. And we're going to draw our thumb, but it's going to be smaller than our other fingers. So we're going to draw a smaller, thin rectangle, the middle, smaller, thin rectangle, and then a small triangle for the thumb. And you have just drawn the second hand. So like we did with Jack, I'm going to start with Sally's head. And I'm going to draw her head about right here. And she's got a very circular head. And I'm going to erase Jack's arm here because I don't need that anymore. It's behind her head, so we won't be able to see it. So now that we have her head, we're going to draw her neck and her shoulders. All right, we'll come back to the hair and the face. So her neck is a little bit thicker than Jack's. So I'm going to draw my line a little bit thicker, and it's also a little longer. Just a little bit, if we look at that. So if we look at Jack's shoulders compared to Sally's, Jack has a lot more straight and square shoulders. And Sally has more rounded shoulders or soft shoulders. So from the bottom of her neck, we're going to draw two lines going down. So we have her shoulders and her neck. Now we're going to give her sleeves to her dress. So from one side of our line here, we're gonna kind of extend that line a little bit. And then we're gonna draw like a jagged line just coming across a little bit because she's a rag doll. So she's made entirely out of rags. And then we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. We're gonna extend it just a little and we're gonna draw some jagged lines. And now we're gonna draw her waist and the rest of her dress. So from those jagged lines, we're gonna draw a line coming in on both sides. And then we're gonna draw some lines going out just a little bit to give her hips. And then we're gonna draw those lines down. And it's okay if they're not even, because again, she's made out of rags.
She does.
And then we're gonna fill those in and we're gonna add some jagged edges. So let's go ahead and continue down. We're gonna work on her legs. So she's got 2 legs. The first one, we're gonna draw 2 lines coming down kind of like a triangle. So we have the one leg, we're gonna do the other leg now. So we're gonna do another upside or right side up V. And now she has 2 legs. And then her boots are a little bit different. At the bottom of those V's, we're gonna draw a sideways oval. And those are gonna be the top of her socks. And underneath those ovals, we're gonna draw a V. This one's a smaller V. So on the bottom of that V, draw kind of like a squiggly, a long S. A long S. From the back, we're gonna draw a line going down, just like we did with Jack's shoe. And then from there, we can draw another long S connecting the bottom or the left side to the right side, just like that. And then we're gonna do it again on the right shoe too. So we're gonna draw this long S. On the right, we're gonna draw a line going down. And then we're gonna connect it in the middle. All right, so now that her shoes are done, we gotta go back and work on her head and her arms. So let's do her arms first. We're gonna start on her left side. From her sleeve, we're gonna draw 2 lines going out to the left. And then we're gonna draw it going to the right, and it's gonna go behind her, like she's holding her hands behind. 2 lines going down to the right, and then 2 lines going down to the left first. So she's got a head, but we need to do her hair now. So from the top of her head, we'll do the left side first. We're gonna draw a line that goes down to her shoulder. Down to her shoulder. And then my hair ends right on the shoulder. So if I were to continue that line, you would see that line in between her arm and her waist. So I'm gonna draw a little line there because I know she has long hair. Now the other side of the hair, it comes kind of down and makes like a kind of a backwards S shape. So I'm gonna add a little curve to it to make it look like it's swaying in the wind. And then again, because I drew it in pencil and Jack's arm is behind her hair, I erased part of his arm because we wouldn't see it if we saw them standing next to each other. All right, now we're gonna end her hair. So from that line that we have floating out there, we're gonna draw another wavy line just to show that her hair is moving. But Sally has hers right in the middle. So in the middle of her head, we're gonna draw just a tiny little line, just like that. And then we're gonna draw the hair that's laying over her face. So if we look on the left side of her face, she's got a lot less hair right here. So I'm gonna draw it closer to that first line that I drew. And then we need to do the other side. So this other side, it lays over more of her face. So that line doesn't need to be as close to the outside line. So again, I'm going to go through and carry that all the way down to where the hair ends. Okay, now her face. So her eyes are a little bit different shape than Jack's. Jack's eyes are almost perfect circles. Sally's eyes are more like an almond shape. So I'm going to draw two of them in this almond shape. And Sally has pretty eyelashes, so I'm going to draw some dashes above her eyes to give her her eyelashes. So we need to give her some pupils, and you can move her pupils. So right now in this drawing, I have her looking off this way, like something's coming up to her. If you want her looking at you, you would put them right in the middle. If you want her looking at Jack, we would put them up off to the right a little bit. And she'd be looking at Jack. So now we're gonna draw her nose, and her nose is really easy. It's just kind of like a U or a V right in between her eyes. So her smile, she's got these stitches right here, because remember, she's a rag doll. So kind of like we did Jack, from one side of his face to the other, we're gonna do the same thing for Sally. And again, I'm gonna turn my paper because it feels better on my hand to draw this way. So I'm going to draw from one end to the other a big smile. We're going to give her lips. So her top lip is an upside down W. So I'll draw it a little bigger so you can see it. That's kind of the shape of her upper lip. And then her bottom lip is a V or a U, and that goes right underneath. So now we're going to give her those little stitches. So just along her smile, we're going to give her those little tick marks. And then she also has one that goes from her chin or her jaw to the top of her head. So I'm going to draw a squiggly line like that. And then give her some more stitches. So now we need to give her the neckline of her dress. So again, she's a rag doll. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a jagged line going from one shoulder to the other. And then we're going to draw her stitches. So on her neck, she has two lines of stitches. It goes from the middle of her, the line, the neckline of her dress, and it goes up her neck. Okay. So she has that stitch line going right up, and then she also has one that's kind of shaped like a necklace. So it makes that U right there. So now we're going to go through and we're going to work on the dress. Where I put the stitches is I put one kind of where her shoulders would be. So I put one on each side. And then I went through and add those stitches. And then she's kind of like right on her waist. She's got like a V stitch going there. You can put the stitches wherever you want. I'm just showing you where I put them. I'm putting one down the middle. So in the movie, she's got two lines going from the left down to the right. So that's what I just drew here. I'm going to go through and add those stitch marks. And then from that top line, she has one going from that V to the top line. And she also has one going from that top line off to the right like this. And she also has stitches on her arms. On her left arm, she has one that's kind of like right in her elbow, right where her elbow bends. And then on her right arm, so she had one on the top of her right arm, and she also has one on the bottom of her right arm. And she has some on her legs too. So I think I'm going to do 2 on her left leg. And then we'll do 1 on her right leg. All right. And then I got a pro artist tip for you. We're going to add some shadows underneath Sally and Jack to make them look like they're actually standing on something. So what I like to do for that is underneath their feet, I draw like an oval, a sideways oval, just like this. So I drew the oval underneath Sally's feet, and I'm going to fill that in to make it a little darker. All right, so there they are.